What's up everyone, Anthony Saratelli here, Jersey Filmmaker, and I'm in Brooklyn today. I'm gonna test a bunch of cameras and most excited about the Panasonic EVA-1. Ooh, gear. As usual, heading up to Abel-Cine, guys, meet Dan, the man, Dan Can. You get used to him, you might see him around a little bit. We're about to get down and dirty with some cameras. Pretty loud out here. I don't know if this is gonna work, but let me do a recap of how it went. It was pretty cool to test both cameras. I'd never worked with the EVA-1 before, so I wasn't sure the inner workings of the camera. Come on with this truck. Of course, all the settings on the camera took a little while to get used to, but I mean, we only shot for 3 hours and we got everything in we needed to, so it was probably about an hour of setup, literally from setting up the camera to figuring out the card, figuring out the settings until we got rolling. Overall, it went really well. I'm excited to see what it looked like. Just wanted to give you a recap literally right after this is all done, even though this probably sucks as far as sound. But I'll give you a much more detailed breakdown once I get back and check out all the footage. All right, I'm back and I've had a chance to finally go through all the footage and take a look. And I've got to say, I'm disappointed. Either I blew it or these cameras just straight up suck. And I know these cameras don't suck, so take these tests with a grain of salt. I do want to do this again, but I just know that I can't do it in the near future. So I still wanted to put this out there and show you what I did capture, even though, like I said, it's not great, but there is some value to it, so let's go. So we had two setups. One was an LED lit set, and the other was a big theater that we could black out to use for low light tests, which is supposed to be the big selling point of the EVA-1. Both cameras have Super 35 sensors, so our field of view was very similar on each one. So that we weren't using different glass, I used two Canon 24 to 70mm 2.8L series lenses. We also got to use the Atomos Sumo 19-inch field monitor, which I think is a recorder as well. So that was a nice little perk. Again, like I said, we had to learn this camera, and the biggest problem we ran into was the media. I have SDXC UHS-1 cards. These are V30 rated. I don't even know what that means, but that's what they are. The Panasonic EVA-1 requires a rating of V60 or higher, which you can get from an SDXC UHS-2 card. I do not have that. So I had to go back to the rental department and see what they had back there to use so we can actually capture this footage to bring home to test. We started with a micro SD card that we thought might work, which didn't, but we ended up finding a micro P2 card, which I didn't even know existed, but it worked in this situation. I'm still not sure that this is the right card to use with this camera. We were still getting incompatible cards and card error readings, and the recordings would just stop after, I don't know, like a minute. I wouldn't be confident using this on a job, but we got through our tests with this for now, so next time I know to bring a much higher speed card. So once we finally got set up, the first test we ran was in the lit set, so there were a bunch of colors, and we threw Dan in there for some skin tones, and we went with a no picture profile on the FS5 and a very generic scene profile on the EVA-1. The other main setting on this test was that I did an auto white balance, because this is how I shoot a lot of my jobs when I'm on the go, run and gun, so I wanted to see what kind of colors this would pull if I went with auto white balance. Now I did assume that this set was lit properly, being that it was set up when we got there at Abel-Cine, and it looks like they do all kinds of tests there. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but it looked like from the results that possibly there were some mixed color temperatures, could be from the light sources in the room combined with the LEDs, or maybe some LEDs were on a different color temperature setting. There were some bicolor ones up there. I'm not sure, but the results of the auto white balance in both cameras was awful. I'll throw up the original shots and then of course my attempt to color correct them. Please keep in mind, I am not a colorist. If I don't shoot it correctly and I'm far off, I do have a hard time figuring out how to get the white balance correct. I know this might seem like a simple feat, but sometimes when it's so far off, I can get the whites to look white, but then the skin tones look terrible, and then I try to get the skin tones to look normal and the whites look terrible. So sometimes I get into that situation, and that's what happened here. I will upload and put a link to these files below if anyone's good with color and wants to take a stab at it. Please do so and show me what these things could really look like. Send them on over. I'd love to see that. But to me, the images just look super muddy. The vibrance of the colors aren't too bad, but the skin tones are just looking gross to me. And the lens is at 24 millimeters, which in my experience doesn't give you the most crisp image anyways. Overall, these just look like crap to me. I'm embarrassed. I'm glad they're off the screen. Let's just keep it moving. For the low light test, we moved over to the theater and blacked it out and set up minimal light sources with 2 Litra torch LEDs. These things are amazing, by the way, and I will be talking about these very soon. In these shots, I balanced both cameras at 5600 Kelvin. Once again, starting with the no picture profile / scene profile. Now though, we get to use the super cool dual ISO and bump the native ISO on the EVA-1 up to 2500. And to match, I bumped the FS5 to 2500 as well, so that we could shoot at the same ISO to see what the difference really is. And after pulling these in and looking at the results, I think they came out looking very similar, which I was really surprised with. I thought for sure the EVA-1 was gonna blow the FS5 out of the water, but the FS5 held its own and honestly doesn't look much different than the EVA-1's footage. But next we go over to log on both cameras, S-Log3 on the Sony and V-Log on the Panasonic. This test showed us a lot more, however, I did mess this one up a little bit on my FS5, so there's no excuse, I just goofed it. I was in front of the camera this time, Dan was back there, he's checking everything, he's like, hey, you're a little soft on the FS5. I'm like, no, don't worry about it. The viewfinder on the FS5, don't trust it. It's, don't worry about it. I said it already. It's all good. I was soft. So it sucks that the image is soft, but even so, we can still look at the noise and the shadows and we see that it's a lot more on the FS5. Keep in mind we bumped the native ISO up to 2500 on the EVA-1, but the base ISO in S-Log3 on the FS5 is 3600 and cannot be changed. So the FS5 is set to a higher ISO, which you would think would naturally make for more noise in the shadows, which it does, and that's what we're seeing. But once the LUT is applied, it's looking very, very similar in the blacks. However, the gradients are much worse in the FS5 in my opinion, so the EVA-1 does hold up better. But the EVA-1's noise to me does look very video-like. I hate using that word, but it does look very speckled, very video-ish, not like a film grain. Not that noise should look like a film grain, but if you do get noise, you kind of hope that it does. One last test we did was with the overhead lights on, all LEDs, consistent color temperature. We went back to the no picture profile / scene profile settings, and these came out looking pretty normal. If you look at Dan's hair, the EVA-1 had more warmth in the midtones than I like, so I personally like the FS5 better in this situation. So again, I know these tests were not great at all, but I want to take something positive from it, and that is that testing cameras is very important. Many of these cinema cameras get so advanced and the settings are so important to get right that if you don't know them, you can get really shitty images. So you really should test cameras if you're thinking about spending thousands or tens of thousands of dollars on these things, because you just never know what you're getting into unless you really see the footage yourself. And also, if you just happen to have to use a camera on a shoot, it would be nice to know the camera before you get there so you don't run into problems like I did, where I didn't know even where the buttons were or what they did or what media card to use. So one last time, I want to apologize for the terrible test footage. I completely failed in this one. I'm embarrassed, but I still want to put it out there to show you that it's not always easy to go out there and just grab great images. Your camera choice, your lens choice, your lighting, your composition are also important. So I hope you took something from this. If you liked this video, which you probably didn't, hit that little like button for me, subscribe, and hit that little bell so you get alerts to all future episodes. If you have any comments or questions or just want to rip on me for this episode, you can do that right below or on any of my social medias, Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, @Jersey Filmmaker. Thanks so much for watching, and even if your results are crappy, remember to get out there, don't wait, go create. I'll see you next time.